Hey folks, the other day I came across a social media post in a diabetes group that I'm a member of, and I want to share it with you because it really stopped me in my tracks. So in the group, the person wrote something like this. I'm going to basically sum it up. My blood sugar was low this morning, so I poured myself a little apple juice. It was supposed to be for breakfast, but the cat came in, so I had to feed the cat, and I just really wanted to go back to bed. So they went on to write, I got out my insulin out of the refrigerator, but I remember that the doctor said I should take it within 15 to 20 minutes during my breakfast. But if I go back to bed, breakfast may not be for another hour or more. I guess I better go ahead and eat breakfast right now just to be on the safe side. Okay, that's it. That's all the person wrote. Now, that was the whole post. So I sat with it for a minute because I started thinking this post was really not about food. It's not about medication. That post was saying something that I think a lot of people deal with. This post is about what it actually feels like to manage the condition called type 2 diabetes every single morning. I know a lot of you all can relate to that. Okay, so your alarm goes off, or maybe you just wake up on your own before the alarm goes off. And before you even sit up, you know something just feels off. You just totally feel off. Your blood sugar is low. You shuffle to the kitchen and you pour yourself something to drink, maybe some apple juice or even a soda, you know, just enough to bring up your blood sugar. And so there you are. You're standing there in the kitchen. The insulin is on the counter. But then you remember that your doctor said that you need to go ahead and take your insulin at some point, well, right around your breakfast time. But that means you got to make something for breakfast, right? Whether you got to cook some eggs and sometimes you just don't have the energy for it. Because you know what? Cooking means energy that you don't really have right now. And the bed is still warm, right? You just woke up. So you do the math in your head. You know what? If I go back to bed for at least an hour, I'll miss that window, but it's okay. But what if I stay up though? I have to do all this right now. So you struggle. Do I go back to bed? Do I stay up and just get ready for the rest of the day? Do I make my breakfast? Let's be honest, folks. 9 times out of 10, that's not laziness. You're simply exhausted. You're dealing with exhaustion. That is a negotiation you have to make with yourself every day, early in the morning, whether you're getting up at 6 or 7 o'clock and you're trying to manage this chronic condition and you just feel like, man, you know what, if I can just get stuff together. What it is there's no structure around it. And if you've ever been that person standing in your kitchen doing the math, I want you to hear this. That moment has nothing to do with you having a character flaw. Not at all. This is what it looks like when structure is actually just missing. Now, I know when people hear structure, they hear, oh man, I have to be so regimented, and it's so mentally draining and exhausting. And you know what? Today we're going to fix that. So I want you to stick around to hear the rest of today's episode. This is going to be a really good episode if you've ever struggled with getting it together. So let's go. Be sure to visit the website at www.beatingdiabetieslifestyle.com for access to free resources and other information that will help you along your journey. If you would like to submit a question or a comment about the show or to learn more about the Beating Diabetes Lifestyle, you can always email me at hello@beatingdiabeteslifestyle.com. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Welcome to the Beating Diabetes Lifestyle podcast with me, your host, Oscar Camejo, helping diabetics make lifestyle changes to reverse type 2 diabetes. If you're new here, I'm glad you found this podcast. If you've been here for a while, you already know the deal. I want to say thank you. Whether you're listening from Africa, Australia, Europe, wherever you are, thank you so much. You all know I like to keep it real. I like to keep it practical. And I like to keep it moving. And so before we dive in, if this episode helps you today, please do me a favor. I want you to like it, share it, and subscribe if you haven't already. You can also rate the show because that helps to get this show into more ears so that we can keep growing this community. You know, I'm so glad that I have my own Facebook community. There's people who are interacting there. They're asking questions often. Sometimes I get a direct inbox message with people who just want to know how to do things better. I created this podcast to really be a blessing to people. I like to keep things simple. I don't like things to be complicated. That's why we're deep in this lifestyle behavior series right now. This series is all about habits, right? It's all about those habits that quietly sometimes may be working against our health, and when we don't even know it. There's certain things that we are just oblivious to. That's why I want to bring a lot of things to light. This is that stuff that builds up in the background until you realize that, what, if I don't pay attention to this stuff, things can get worse. And my goal through this series is to make things less complicated, to help you to understand where you are and how to make changes, right? We've talked about stress, we've talked about overeating, we've talked about a whole bunch of things. And speaking about stress, I have an episode that I want you to check out, because you know what? We talked about how stress pushes you towards food and how that food pushes your blood sugar way up. So if you missed that episode on stress, please go back and check it out. Today, though, we're talking about something that holds every other behavior together, or it can tear it apart. We're talking about your daily rhythm. We're talking about your structure, or the lack thereof. And coming up at some point, we're also going to be talking about hydration. And hydration is more than just about drinking water. And I know a lot of people struggle with just drinking water, but we're going to talk all about poor hydration and how to really get on track where that's concerned. Because you know what? What you drink and when you drink it matters more than most people think. But again, today we're going to deal with structure. So let's talk about it. When I was dealing with my condition, type 2 diabetes, I realized that, man, I needed to get things together, but it was hard. It was hard to really get things together. And I realized later on is because I didn't have a structure, I didn't have a system. And I know sometimes when people hear about structure, system, it can seem overwhelming. So that's why I want to speak from the heart for just a moment. Before 2020, my mornings had no structure at all, folks. I'm telling you, I would just get up and just eat whatever. In fact, I was going to bed around 2 in the morning most nights. And, I would wake up whenever I just woke up, eating whatever it was at in the cupboard or whatever I had in the refrigerator. I had no structure, folks. And when it came to taking care of my health, I did that whenever I got around to it. Because, honestly, it wasn't often that I was thinking about my health. I felt fine, but there were certain things that were happening underneath the hood, if you will. And things got kind of worse for me. Man, I remember those days, man, when I was 268 pounds. There was no anchor to my day. Everything just kind of, just happened. Yeah, would go to work, had a routine to go to work. But you know what? Eventually, I gained a lot of weight, folks, and my body started not only showing it, but started feeling it. And you know what? By the summer of 2020, my glucose, folks, hit 420. If you know anything about your A1C numbers, mine was at 12%. My triglycerides were through the roof. They were high. And, things were really risky. I was dealing with a whole bunch of stuff. And then my doctor put me on insulin that summer. And I remember thinking, man, how did I get here? How did I end up in the hospital? Finding out that I had type 2 diabetes, folks. Well, you know what? Part of that answer is I had no structure. I had no rhythm. My health actually had no place in my day to day because my day had no shape. When it came to my health, I was just like, whatever, man. And I know I'm not alone in that. I know some of you who are watching or listening, you're living that same reality every morning right now. And let me say this, you're not lazy. You may feel like it. You're not failing, but you may feel like it. You don't have a system yet. And that is probably the biggest problem, the biggest issue. That's what this podcast is all about. Now, I'm not trying to beat anybody up. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. But you know what? We have to really face the reality. We have to look at the person in the mirror and be honest with ourselves. And so here's a big idea for today. And I want you to really hear this because this is very important. I know a lot of you all get confused when you're thinking about your blood sugar, but you know what? Your blood sugar actually follows a schedule. Whether you do or not, your blood sugar actually has its own schedule. Your body has its own internal clock. It runs on a rhythm. It runs on a 24-hour cycle. And that clock is constantly sending signals. That's just how our bodies are made. And you know what? Your body knows when to release hormones. Your body knows when to prep for eating. Your body knows when to slow down for the night, when it's time to go to bed. It knows it. Your body even knows when it's time to restore your health. Your body knows it. It's internal. It's something that's automatic. You don't even have to think about it. Now, here's the thing. When you build a consistent daily rhythm, you start working towards getting in sync with your body's internal clock. But now, when you don't have a consistent daily rhythm, you're actually fighting against your own biology every single day. Now, here's an analogy that I want you to think about. Think about a thermostat in your house, right? That thermostat doesn't guess what temperature it should be. It doesn't work like that. It has a set point. And what happens is that thermostat works to maintain that set point all day. Now, your morning routine is your set point. It tells your body what to expect. It tells your blood sugar where to land, where to be, basically. And when you don't have a routine, when you don't have a rhythm, things get out of whack, if you will. Your blood sugar doesn't know what to do either. So it just simply responds to whatever hits it first. So I don't want to get real technical, but I do want to get into the science a little bit just to bring it home so you can understand. So I don't know if you ever heard of the dawn phenomenon, but I'm going to explain it a little bit to you. Before you even open your eyes in the morning, your body is already working on your blood sugar. It's automatic. That's the dawn phenomenon. Research shows that over 50% of people with type 2 diabetes experience the dawn phenomenon, which causes blood sugar levels to rise early in the morning hours before breakfast even begins. Now that's from the Cleveland Clinic. It's a 2025 study. So over half of people with type 2 diabetes are dealing with this dawn phenomenon effect. Now, let me say it again. That's more than half of people. So what's actually happening? So let's say between 2 to 3 in the morning, your body starts to release cortisol. Now, if you've listened to any of the past episodes, especially on stress, the cortisol, that's your stress hormone. It also releases growth hormone and a few other hormones. And these hormones signal your liver to release glucose into your bloodstream. And there's a reason for that. That's to give you energy to prepare you for the day. So just think, dawn phenomenon, cortisol plus growth hormone equals your liver releasing glucose even before you have breakfast. Now, why does the body do this? Because it's trying to give you energy to wake up and move. Remember, just think about it. You need energy to get up, right? It's a survival mechanism, folks. Now, check this out. Cortisol levels begin rising between 2 and 3 a.m., like I said, and it peaks around 8:30 a.m. This hormone works against insulin, reducing your body's sensitivity to it and raising blood sugar before the day even starts. So now remember, your body's releasing glucose into your system to give you energy. Now, for people living without insulin resistance, that's without diabetes or prediabetes, right? The body compensates. The body knows what to do with that glucose. It produces a little more insulin on its own to balance it out. But what if you have type 2 diabetes or prediabetes? You know, that compensation, it doesn't work well at all. And that's why your blood sugar stays high in the mornings. You wake up in the morning with higher blood sugar than you had when you went to bed. So let that sink in. Your blood sugar can already be elevated before you've eaten a single bite of food. That is why your morning routine matters so much, folks. We definitely need to talk about timing, folks, not just about what you eat, but when you eat as well. Research shows that eating at irregular times from one day to the next decreases insulin sensitivity and leads to greater blood sugar spikes after meals compared to eating on a consistent schedule. That's a research from 2025. So just think about it. When you don't have a routine, when you're just eating whenever, it could be late at night or early in the morning or just whatever. You don't have structure. You are just eating whenever, right? You could throw your body into an imbalance. Now, here's the thing, folks. Your body prepares for meals that it can predict. When you eat at the same time every day, your digestive system, it gets ready. It knows what to do. It understands your routine. Now, your insulin response lines up with that incoming food. That's why having a routine is important. Everything works more efficiently. But when your meal schedule bounces all over the place and you just have inconsistent eating and you're not eating in a structured way, your body's going to feel it. Your body's going to experience it because your body doesn't know what's coming. So the response is all over the place. Your blood sugar swings harder and you start having these roller coaster things happening with your blood sugar. And I know I've been there. You get frustrated, you're checking your blood sugar. You're like, man, but I didn't eat any sweets or whatever, or any bread. You know what? I get it, folks. I've been there. That's why it's important to get educated, to learn about what's happening with our bodies and why it's important to have good structure, to have a solid structure. So in 2024, there was a study that said it was a review published in the journal Nutrients that found that eating 2 to 3 meals per day within a 24-hour window or shorter promotes weight loss and better blood sugar control in people with type 2 diabetes. But skipping breakfast disrupts the body's natural rhythm and should be avoided. Okay, now let me say this, folks. You don't have to eat all day in order to manage your blood sugar. I also don't want you to skip a whole bunch of meals because that's not good either. In fact, eating at random times throughout the day is actually working against you. You know, when you have 2 to 3 time meals, that actually works better for you. Yes, you should have a reasonable window. That's the goal. And I get it. Some of us, we have complicated lives. We have things that we have to deal with at work and a home life, and things can be out of balance. But that's why it's important for us to get on track. You know, we're not here just to be eating at random times. You don't want to be doing that, folks. So let's move on and talk about sleep and your sleep schedule and how sleep can affect your blood sugar numbers. It can affect all kind of things, even your moods and so forth. Okay, when I talk about sleep, I'm talking about being consistent with having a sleep schedule, not just how many hours, but when. You know, this is where a lot of people miss it. I've missed it before. You know, when you wake up at different times every day, your blood sugar doesn't know what to do either because your body has an internal clock and is getting signals every single morning. If you're staying up late watching TV and then you're getting up in the morning at different times and you're just always exhausted, folks, that's going to affect your blood sugar. It's going to affect all kinds of things. So depending on your work schedule, maybe noise, stress, and your environment, the impact may be great on your blood sugar, but we can measure all of that. You know, it's not just, again, how much sleep you're getting, it's how consistent your schedule is. Now, let me say that again, folks. Hear me loud and clear. Consistency matters more than duration. Yeah, you can be getting 8 hours of sleep one night, but the rest of the week, you're getting 4 hours of sleep. You know, stop playing, folks. We have to do better at getting consistent sleep. You understand what I'm saying? Because you know what? If we're just sporadically just going to bed at different times each night, and it's just no wonder why we're fatigued. No wonder why we're exhausted. No wonder why we're experiencing high blood sugar and so forth. You know, folks, let me show you how this plays out in real life, because this is not just biology. This is actually a loop. Once you're in that loop, I know it's hard to see your way out. So again, when you don't have a routine, inconsistent sleep, your morning cortisol spikes up, You're delaying when you eat breakfast. You're delaying what you put in your body, whether it's good or not. Your medication window is missed sometimes. And for those of you all who are on medication, your blood sugar climbs. You have afternoon fatigue. You skip your workout and all this stuff happens. And then you go to bed late at night. Come on now. I learned this stuff the hard way, but I'm glad I made some changes. So you see how all this stuff works? One misstep, it doesn't just affect that morning. It affects your whole day. Hopefully this is all making sense. And guess what? When today's affected, it's going to affect your next morning, right? It's going to affect how you wake up in the morning. And here's the other piece that nobody really talks about. When you're managing type 2 diabetes, man, trust me, it takes a lot of mental focus. It takes a lot of mental energy. And I know a lot of you all are frustrated and exhausted. Every morning is a set of decisions, right? And you deal with decision fatigue. You got to check your blood sugar. You got to time your medication. You got to decide what to eat, when to eat. You got to figure out, how much portions you got to eat, all that stuff. And if the day is already chaotic before you've had your cup of coffee, you know what, folks, that decision gets so hard. And I know you're exhausted. I've been there, but there's hope. I want you to keep your head up. That's why I created this diabetes lifestyle and this podcast, my blog, my social media posts is to give you daily practical tips that can help you to not only manage type 2 diabetes, but hopefully to reverse it. So check this out. In a 2022 research by the Psychology Research and Behavior Management. The research shows that a heavier mental load and decision fatigue are directly associated with worse adherence to blood sugar monitoring, diet, and physical activity in people with type 2 diabetes. So basically, when your brain is tired, it reaches for the path of least resistance. And that path of least resistance is rarely the healthy choice, right? We're not thinking about, eating a salad when we're stressed out. No, that's not weakness. That's just human biology. But here's the thing, folks. When you build a routine, when you build a rhythm, you make that decision easier. You take that decision out of the morning. You don't have to decide to check your blood sugar. It just happens when you wake up. It's an automatic thing. You don't have to decide to eat breakfast. It's just something that happens next when you have a routine. It's not like you wake up and like, oh man, what am I going to do? Am I going to take my vitamins? Am I going to work out? Am I going to eat? No, when you have a routine, the routine helps to make the decision for you. It becomes automatic. Research also shows that when a person's daily routine gets disrupted, though, it directly affects the timing, the place, and dose of their diabetes medication. A disrupted routine is not just an inconvenience, it is a documented clinical risk. So that is real, folks. That's not some story, that's not some anecdotal response to everything that I'm saying. No, this is documented. So when the structure goes out the window, the management goes with it. All right, folks, there's always good news. And I really need you to hear this loud and clear. We can all use some good news, right? Especially if we've been struggling with mental exhaustion, decision fatigue, and so forth. We don't have to have perfect mornings every morning. We just need consistency. We need to have consistent mornings. There's a big difference. Perfection, folks, is not sustainable. Is in fact is unsustainable. Consistency is what changes your numbers. If you're struggling with high blood pressure, high cholesterol, high blood sugar numbers, you know what? Your consistency in doing the right things, the healthier things, is going to help change those. Now, here's what I want to share with you from my own experience, folks. I came across this book by James Clear. It's called Atomic Habits. And that book really opened my eyes to certain habits that I had when it came to my eating and so forth. And I'm so glad that I picked up that book, and I want you to get a copy for yourself. Again, it's called Atomic Habits by James Clear. Because you know what, folks, I went from having a glucose reading of 420 when I went in the hospital in the summer of 2020 to being off all medication by mid 2022. A big part of that was building a structure that really addressed my habits. It wasn't a complicated routine, it was a simple one. It was all about consistency. And I had to examine my habits. I ended up completing an ultra marathon by March 2024. And you know, that kind of discipline doesn't come because I had this great willpower. It actually came, and you can achieve it by having a routine that you've practiced long enough that becomes automatic. Your body, folks, is resilient, and your routine is where resilience starts. So we have to have a plan. You know, I said when you fail to plan, you plan to fail, that old saying. So this is where you really have to think about what is it going to take for me to build confidence? How can I make this stuff practical? How can I, step into that lifestyle that really is rewarding? So let's talk about what we actually need to do. So I want to give you 5 practical steps. Again, real simple, nothing complicated. Again, very practical. And you can actually start tomorrow. You can start tomorrow morning, but I want you to start thinking about it today. So, step number 1, you need to anchor your wake up time, basically having a specific time that you wake up. You pick one wake up time. I mean, just simply pick one. And this is not, oh, I'm just going to wake up the same time Monday through Friday and then another one on Saturday and Sunday. Now, I know a lot of people, when they hear that, they're like, nah, I like to sleep in on Saturdays and Sundays because I have work the other days and so forth. I get it. But we're talking about building a system to work in line with your body, right? One wake up time, 7 days a week. That is your anchor. Everything else in your mornings, they have to be built around that. Now, again, I know it. Some of y'all thinking like, nah, Oscar's crazy because I need to sleep in. I may not get enough sleep Monday through Friday, but I am sure going to get enough sleep on Saturday and Sunday. But just follow me. Now, here's step 2. I want you to check your blood sugar first thing. So what could help is if you have your blood sugar meter on your nightstand, not in the bathroom, not in the kitchen, not in some drawer somewhere, but on your nightstand. Remember, out of sight, out of mind, what we want to do to reverse, we want to have it in our line of sight. You want to be able to check your blood sugar within 15 minutes of you waking up. That's important, folks. Before you grab your phone, before you grab anything, this tells you where you are. This is where your starting numbers are. That data is going to be very important. There's no guessing. You know exactly what's going on. Now, step number 3, eat breakfast within 60 minutes of waking up. I know some of y'all already like, man, Oscar's like tearing up my whole routine. Well, the problem is some of y'all don't have a routine. Now, if you take medication without food, breakfast closes that medication window. And when breakfast happens consistently at the same time, your body starts preparing for it. The insulin response gets better, folks. The blood sugar spikes get smaller. It doesn't have to be one big production, folks. Remember, keep it simple. It just has to happen at roughly the same time every day. Now let's move on to step number 4. You need to attach your diabetes task to something you already do. This is called habit stacking. Take your medication before you make your coffee, not after, before. This is an example because making coffee is already automatic for you, right? So if that's a part of your routine, I want you to start stacking. You don't have to think about it. It's just something that you do. And now your medication rides along with that automatic momentum, that automatic moment. You check your blood sugar before you let the dog out, right? For example, or before you check your phone. You get what I'm saying. Or even before you sit down for breakfast. You're starting to pick habits that you already have, right? You're paying attention to your habits that you already have. And what you're doing is something that you need to do without even thinking, right? There's certain things you don't even have to think about. You're just doing it automatically anyway. So attach your diabetes task or that thing that you're working on, attach it to your daily routine. That's the move. And it works, folks. Your habit stacking. Now, there's certain things I know that you're going to want to start getting rid of. If you normally drink soda in the morning, yeah, that's something that you want to switch out. Maybe start drinking more water. So anyway, let's move on to step number 5. Step 5, set a stopping point for the same time every night. Just like setting a wake up time for every morning, this one, step number 5, catches a lot of people off guard. The morning starts the night before, actually, folks. So again, if your bedtime is all over the place, your wake up time will be all over the place as well. That's why you have to pick a stopping point. For me, I'm like, okay, no cell phone at a certain time, no television at a certain time. You need to start settling down for the night. The same time every night. I know it's easier said than done, but we have to work towards it. You don't have to fall asleep at the exact minute every single day. You just need to signal to your body that the day is ending. That signal that you give to your body is what makes tomorrow morning possible. Now, folks, how many times have you gone to bed at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning because you were watching some television show or whatnot? And then you woke up feeling terrible the next day because you have to go to work. And you have to go to work. You can't call in sick every day. Come on, because you're not feeling well because you were staying up late watching your favorite show. Folks, stop playing. Here's the one thing I want you to walk away with today. You don't need a perfect routine. You just need a consistent one. That's it, folks. You want to stabilize your blood sugar? Well, you have to build a consistent routine. You want your medication to work better or to eventually come off medication? Well, you need to build a consistent routine. You want your mornings to stop feeling like a war and you're battling getting out of bed before the day starts? Well, folks, it's going to require building a consistent routine. One anchor, one wake up time, one first step, and you got to build from there. Folks, there's so much that I could talk to you about. I can't cram everything into one episode, but hopefully you understand the importance of having a routine and having a rhythm. And I believe you already know that you need this. But you know what? Most people dealing with diabetes are not drinking nearly enough water, for example. And this is affecting their blood sugar and they don't even realize it. They don't even realize how they are walking around every day dehydrated, stressed out, frustrated. And I'm going to be talking about it, about water and hydration and a whole bunch of other things. So I don't want you to miss any episodes. That's why I need you to subscribe. Tell folks about what's happening over here in the Beating Diabetes lifestyle community, folks. Again, thank you for showing up and listening and tuning in. I know mornings could be hard. I know your routines could be hard. Your daily lifestyle may be hard right now. You may be stressed out about a whole bunch of things. But you know what? We shouldn't have to be stressed out because of our health. We can bounce back, friends. If I can do it after weighing 268 pounds, coming off diabetes medication, I was taking metformin, I was getting injections, I was doing all this other stuff. If I can do it and in less than a year, lose over 80 pounds, actually it was about 84 pounds that I lost. If I can do it, folks, without doing anything special, just having a routine, you can too. So I want you to keep your head up. And as always, stay focused, keep moving, never go back, leap forward, bounce back because you can, my friend. And above all else, trust God. You got this. I believe in you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the Beating Diabetes Lifestyle Podcast with Oscar Camejo. We hope you enjoyed this episode. As a reminder, this podcast is intended for motivational and educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional care by a physician or other healthcare professional or qualified fitness instructor. This podcast is provided on the understanding that it does not constitute medical or professional advice or services. If you're looking for help on your journey, seek a qualified medical practitioner. It's important that you utilize someone who is a trained, licensed healthcare professional who can help you on your journey toward good health.